So I just learned about this business that you probably heard of that sold for $450 million. And although, yes, that's crazy impressive, and every person that is an entrepreneur and that wants to be an entrepreneur, I'm sure has the dream of one day selling a business for millions of dollars. And we'll get to what that business is in a second, but there's really a deeper lesson here and an epiphany that I had as I was watching this and listening to this that relates to the business that I'm growing. And I think you'll find maybe a lot of peace in this as well. So I wind up learning about this story and this lesson from one of my favorite podcasts called My First Million. So let's check it out. Let's check out what this is all about.
All right, go ahead. I'm talking to my barber and he's like, dude, you know whose hair I was cutting? He goes, he's your neighbor. I'm my neighbor. And he goes, yeah, the guy lives just down the street from you. It's the family that started Muscle Milk. So they started back in 1998. And it actually started because he bought a sub brand called Cytomax from his employer. And which is like, who does that? Who goes to their employer and is like, hey, can I buy this like asset that's kind of undervalued or whatever? And it's a niche product. And he has this idea, which is he names it Muscle Milk because he wants to name it after mother's milk, like after breast milk. And he wanted to make a drink that had the nutritional profile of breast milk because he was convinced that breast milk was the most like nutritious food ever. It's not what ended up working, but I think it's a hilarious starting point.
Yeah. How weird is that? Like that's such a weird story. The guy wanted to try to mimic breast milk, and you wind up then creating a company, Muscle Milk, that was known for just having a giant amount of protein in it and being like this overly sweetened, convenient protein shake that I think we all knew was not good quality or didn't seem like good quality or might mess with your stomach a little bit. But then eventually sells the business and company for $450 million. And hold on, wait. He bought the brand from his previous employer. Like, that's incredible. So it's like, stick to what you know. It's like so many people nowadays, they want to start this sexy and glamorous business, but it's just like, just play in the sandbox that you know, like stay in a field that you have experience in already, use that as momentum, get your first win under your belt, and then, use that to go and do whatever it is that you really want to do next. So I thought that part was pretty interesting. And this is not the first instance of someone's initial idea not working. Did you guys know that YouTube, right, where you're watching this video, YouTube was originally created to be a dating site. YouTube was not the intent. The first plan was not for YouTube to be what it is, of just a normal general video sharing site. This was to be a video dating site. And what happened was the founders were having a hard time of getting enough dating videos on it. So they opened up the platform to just accepting any kind of video upload. And, of course, the rest is history. And they sold for, what was it, a few $1 billion to Google. And, as I was watching this, I really felt compelled to make this video and share this, because when I watched this, it had a profound impact on me. And just thinking about not just my past journey of 9 failed businesses from the ages of 18 to 27 and never getting through that point of figuring it out and jumping from idea to idea, but that the last 4 years of the current business that I'm building, Franchise Empire, where this is kind of what it's felt like. And after 4 years now, I finally feel like, aha, we've got it. And we've just hung in there for the last, 4 years, getting to our first, $1 million in annual sales, just scratching, clawing, fighting, trying to figure things out. But there's more to this whole story. So let's keep it going.
Milk, it's a supplement. And it starts out as powder, you put in a drink, and he's like, cool, I think bodybuilders are into this. They're willing to drink this kind of chalky, nasty drink. And he buys in, and basically it's a family business. So it's Greg Pickett and his kids are involved with it. And what's cool about this business is years later, Muscle Milk becomes a household brand. They end up selling the thing for $450 million. I'll make almost $500 million off this Muscle Milk thing. The guy lives down the street. They basically started this as a cul-de-sac company.
So super crazy. And so lesson number one here that I really picked out from this, and I had 4 like core lessons and insights, from watching this and a couple more clips that we're gonna play, is that, it's easier to copy and model someone or something that already works or has been proven to work already, right? And so he bought a business that his employer had. And so there was something there, whether intellectual property, whether systems, whatever it was, there was something there that he was able to model. And this is one of the reasons why, I like franchising as a business model, because you're just basically taking someone else's blueprint and model that has been proven to be effective and successful. You're just taking that and then you're executing on it. You're just following their plan and their playbook. You're not reinventing the wheel from scratch. And so after, 9 failed businesses myself and starting, a clothing line and a landscape company and, an internet marketing company and all these sorts of different things, finally, when I signed my first franchise agreement in 2015, got that franchise open in 2017, we did $30,000 in sales our second month in business. And it was because I just had a playbook to follow. All the previous times of getting confused and not knowing what to do and what do I focus on right now. I remember when I was trying to grow this clothing line I created called Live with Swag. I knew nothing about the clothing industry. And sometimes I would just sit there for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Like, what do I do today? What's important? What do I focus on in the business? And so I would just sit there just kind of confused and overwhelmed, unsure. And when I got into my first franchise, like the franchisor gave me a checklist. And it was like, okay, week 1, do this, week 2, do this, week 3, do this. And there was just this template and this playbook. And it made life, so much easier. I wound up building a multi-million-dollar business with multiple locations with that within that franchise system, and it really helped. Now, some of you watching, a lot of people, when they think of franchises, they think of food franchises, right? And I did wind up owning a food franchise, but there's actually over 4,000 different franchises, service-based businesses that are way cheaper to get up and running, and a lot of the times they do 2-3 times more sales than some of these, smoothie places that you see or some of these food places. So I put together a video and a document called the 5 low-cost franchises that all make $1 million or more. So these are all lower cost franchises. And so if you want to grab that for free, you can, I'll leave the link in the description below. But let's keep listening.
Man, fantastic show.
Yeah, it was such a good scene. All right, so tell me about Milk and Muscles.
Milk and Muscle.
Okay. Did anyone catch that they just said milk and muscles and not muscle milk? When I was listening to this, I'm like, did they do this on purpose? Graham Stephan, if you guys have ever watched him, he's a YouTuber. He used to do that on purpose. He would say the wrong thing just to get people to comment, because the way that the algorithm works on YouTube is the more comments there are, the more the algorithm picks up the video. So Graham would start out videos saying, what's up, Graham? It's guys. Instead of what's up, guys, it's Graham. So anyways, when I saw that happen, I was wondering if that was what they were trying to do.
All right, so they start the business pretty humble plan. They bought this like kind of supplement. It's powder you mix into drinks, and they were like, "Look, if bodybuilding enthusiasts drink this, this would be great. We think we can make this more mainstream, but we don't really know how. We just kind of are believers in the general idea." And they were like, "Look, if this thing ever got to like 18 million in sales, that would be like, imagine that. That would be crazy." And that was like the dinner table talk. By the time they sell, this thing is doing over 200 million in revenue, and about 60 million a year in profit before they sold. So they had built like a really...
Guys, do you realize how crazy that is to have a business that's doing 60 million a year in profit? Even if they're paying 30-40% in taxes, what's 40% of 60? That's 24. So that's 36 million. Granted, I'm sure they're leaving some of the company, but that means they're probably paying themselves, what, pulling out 20, 25 million a year in the business. Like, It just shows the power of continuing to test and listening to your customers. And like entrepreneurship, what I've learned over the last few years, entrepreneurship is very simple. All it is you are solving a problem. And one of the mistakes that I made was that I started, especially early on, trying to start these businesses from the ages of 18 to 27 years old. And you may be making this mistake too, is you're thinking of how can I make as much money as I can? How can I make money? How can I get rich? How can I produce, right? And it's the wrong way of thinking about it, because then you're thinking about yourself and you're leading with yourself, where business is all about serving other people and helping other people. The more people you can help and serve and impact, the more money you will make. And so when you put it from that perspective and go, okay, what problem can I solve and how can I solve that problem? You're putting other people's needs first. And what happens is when you do a good job of solving that problem, the marketplace will reward you. And so what they did was they continued to listen to what their customers wanted and pivoted and adapted to that. And as soon as they did that, they said in 2004, when they landed on that product that tasted real like dessert and tasted really sweet and packaged it up into the muscle milk that we know today, it was flying off the shelves. Their bottler and distributor could not keep up with the demand because they nailed that intersection of what the market wants and what you're supplying. That is something that I've experienced over the last 4 years in our business. Is I had this model of how I wanted to do things when I started the business. No, I want to do our business like this and lead with this online education program. Whereas like that's not what they wanted. They didn't want that as the leading driver. They wanted the education, but after we helped match them and find them specific franchise opportunities. What they really want the most is specific franchise opportunities that align with our goal, and then they want the education. So as soon as we flipped that and switched the level of priority, boom, business started taking off. And same deal here. And if you guys listen or know, Alex Hormozy and Layla Hormozy, in acquisition.com, I wasn't able to find the exact details behind this. But if you remember, when they started their business, they talked about how they only worked with businesses that did $3 million or more. They took an equity percentage in their business. And basically they were, making money by taking some of their top line revenue or their profit. And what I heard from someone was that model wasn't really working. And they weren't able to really grow fast enough. So they pivoted and they launched their workshop division, which has now become what it looks like their core business. And all they do is talk about their workshop division now. And they're doing multiple workshops a month and have, rooms with 100, 200 people. And I think they're charging $5 or $10 a pop. So they're starting to produce some serious money, and they have a whole upsell component to it where like the next event I think is 20, 30 grand, something like that. So it's really interesting. So they pivoted. They initially thought, okay, this is how we want to do things, and then realized, aha, this is actually more challenging than we thought.
It's a really successful company. How do they do it? They eventually, and what I love about these stories is you hear about the story and you're like, you nod your head, you're like, yeah, that makes sense how that happened. But then you look at the timeline, and sometimes I'll force myself to literally draw out the timeline. So it'd be like, all right, 1998, they start the company. And then I'll draw 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. It's like 2004 is when they actually made the product that hit, which is the ready to drink, like we've all seen, the muscle milk carton. And so when you hear that, you're like, okay, cool, 2004, then it really took off, and you just sort of read the numbers and the revenue ramp, and it looks good. But then you zoom in and you force yourself to look at that like 5 or 6 year time period, and you're like, they don't even talk about what they were doing during that time, because it's just like the forgotten grinding out years.
Guys, this is so powerful. This was the biggest aha that I got going through like watching this podcast episode, and I thought I've got to make a video on this, because for 6 years of grinding it out, struggling, experimenting, like think about that. 6 years is 72 months. 6 years is over what is it? It's over 2,000 days of just trying to figure things out. Like, would you stick with something for 6 years, a business where it hasn't really taken off and you're just grinding and struggling? Now, we don't know what sort of revenue they were doing during that 6-year period of time, but I'm guessing that they weren't doing anything close to 200 million a year to 60 million in profit, to anything that would warrant selling the business for, $480 million. So, my takeaway here is to stay in the game. Everyone wants to be an overnight success. Everyone wants to see success in year 1, year 2. But most of these businesses that you see, you forget about the forgotten years. No one talks about that. And without those years, you never get to the golden era of basically printing money and just crushing it, because there were all those years of struggling. And I can relate to that so much. Again, talking about the last 4 years have been, a grind. So don't quit. Keep going, right?
Of trying to make shit happen and staying in the game long enough to get lucky.
And what were they doing?
They were just selling. They were just trying to sell, and they were selling to like really small niches, but ever expanding out of that niche. And eventually he has an insight. The dad has an insight. And the insight is basically like, hey, you know what? Flavor matters. And he's like, if more people are going to drink this, it's going to be because I get this to taste like dessert. And he realized that the initial market they were looking at, which was bodybuilders, they pride in drinking nasty shit. And so anytime you try to make like a fruity, better tasting thing, sweeter thing, they almost kind of rejected it because it felt.
So the last lesson, right? And insight that what I heard from this is really know who you want to be in the marketplace and who you are serving. So for that 6 years, Muscle Milk was getting along, selling to a very niche audience, selling to athletes, selling to, these people that were willing to drink something that didn't really taste that great because of the performance or benefits that they were going to get out of it. And then they realized, if we want to be in the mass market, if we want to really grow to what our potential is, we need to pivot and be something else. And so that's when they made it more sweet, had a more desserty taste, more mass appeal, and then that's when the product started flying off the shelves, right? And so it's interesting, if you think about that as an example, in 2023, Ferrari sold 13,663 cars. Honda sold 3.69 million cars. And so if Ferrari was looking at Honda like, hey, why are we not selling 3.6 million cars? They would really be in for it. But they're okay with only selling 13,000 cars because they know who they are in the marketplace. They're not selling $25,000, $30,000 cars. They're selling cars that start at $200,000-$300,000 and go all the way up to millions of dollars. They know who they are serving in the marketplace. So when you know who you're serving in the marketplace, you become okay with the consequences and the numbers to that. So in the beginning of our business, we were only working with the most serious people that wanted to buy a franchise or replace their income or start a business. And so our barrier to entry was high in the manner in which we work with clients. After, working with, helping 300 people over that 4-year period of time, I realized and thought, okay, we're ready to help a lot more people and expand and grow to a point where we can help 300 people a year, right? Or 300 people a month. And so we had to completely change who we were in the marketplace and how we served people. And that's the biggest lesson that I got out of that. And that I really wanted to share because I just found this whole topic of conversation really profound. And I had so many aha moments thinking about my business journey. And I hope that you did too. So if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe before you go. And if you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments below, or let me know what your take is and what the biggest lesson that you got out of this. I'll see you in the next one.